Hello, and happy Resurrection Day. I pray this morning you got to go, if not all of you, got to celebrate Jesus and what he accomplished at Calvary. But there is one danger. If you are like me and you've heard this story almost your whole life, it's very easy to make this powerfully true story common. So what I present to you today is a different way to see this true story from three perspectives that I would venture you've probably never heard before. Almost as if you went to your mailbox and got 3 letters and they told you what they saw. So right now I present to you to whom it may concern.
To whom it may concern. I am the veil, the very one that hung in the temple, separating the Holy of Holies from the rest of the sanctuary. I was a symbol of the separation between God and humanity, a reminder that only the high priest could enter into the presence of God, but pass me with extreme care. For if one entered incorrectly, they dropped where they stood. On the day that Jesus died, something miraculous happened, beyond what I could ever fathom. I was torn from top to bottom by an unseen force. You may not understand the power that took. Not only was I strong, so much so that it was believed 2 thoroughbred horses could not have torn me in two. I was also tall. I stood over 30 feet. Man could not reach me. Me, the one who stood between holiness and mankind. I could not be moved. I could not be ripped apart. Or so I thought. The significance of this event was not immediately clear, but it soon became apparent. With the tearing of the veil, the barrier between God and humanity was removed. I was removed. The way into the presence of God was now open to all who would come in faith. No longer would the high priest be the only one who could enter the Holy of Holies, but normal men. How could this be? How could such weak men now be invited into the presence of God? I did not understand. I soon came to see, through the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, all people could now approach God with confidence and boldness. The very presence of God, who could drop you cold, was now available to you. Why you? As I hung there, torn and tattered, I knew I had played a small but significant role in the redemption of humanity. I was no longer a wall, a separation. I was a symbol. A powerful symbol of the work that Jesus had accomplished on the cross. I was a sign that the old way of approaching God through sacrifice and ritual had been replaced by a new way, a way of grace and mercy, and his name is Jesus. I have one request of you, and I need you to listen. After I was torn, they, the common people, spoke of how they had been liberated from fear and guilt, and how they had experienced a new sense of closeness with God. My destruction had been a catalyst for change, a symbol of the new era that had dawned with the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and they were in awe. So here is my request. Please don't turn this miracle into anything other than it was. The God of the universe wants to be close to you without me or anything else in the way. Sincerely, The Veil.
To whom it may concern, I am the grave, the very one that held the lifeless body of Jesus Christ for a moment. The events that led to my creation were tragic. Death often is. What was surprising to me was how necessary this moment was. This moment that would become the greatest accomplishment known to the history of man, the salvation of mankind. You need to understand something. Being a grave, I have a very simple purpose. I hold death. My walls are painted with hopelessness. My floor is laid with grief. There is nothing beautiful about me. Death is quite bleak, or so I thought. Yet, as the body of Jesus was placed within me, I felt a sense of weightiness that I had never felt before. This body, this shell of flesh, it was heavy. Not heavy in the sense of what you imagine, but the weight of true authority, the sense of being around true power that commands your full attention. It was as if the weight of the world had been placed within me, so much so that you could almost feel the ground around me breathing, in anticipation for something or someone to be revealed. I knew that this was no ordinary burial. It felt different. In the days that followed, I felt the despair of those who followed Jesus, loved Jesus. They mourned his loss and struggled to come to terms with his death. But even in the midst of their sorrow, there was a sense of hope that lingered in the air. Almost as if they were waiting, hoping something was going to happen. It was as if they knew that a miracle was on the horizon. When Sunday arrived, it became a morning that is forever etched in my memory. As previously stated, I hold death. And I hold it well. It's a sorrowful cargo I know all too intimately. It feels like a cold, dark room with no door to leave and no light to show the way. While grasping the dead body of Jesus within my walls, I felt something. This something was similar to the eerie feeling you get when someone is standing behind you, sensing that you are not alone. A warmth that I could only dream about. A flash of hope that seemed so subtle, yet full of life. Life? How can something I have never felt or known taste so sweet, so real, so at home? I don't know how to describe it exactly, but all I know is that the ground shook, the stone was rolled away, and the same Jesus that was once clothed in death stood alive, walking out of me, in what seemed to be what I could only describe as victory. The joy and hope that filled my being was indescribable. The body that I had held was now transformed, and the power of death had been defeated. Who knew something so powerful as death could be broken with such grace? As the days turned into weeks and months, people began to come to me, not to mourn, but to celebrate. They sang songs of victory, and they shared stories of how Jesus had changed their lives. I am not accustomed to being met with such joy. It was as if the whole world had been transformed. And it was all because of the resurrection of the man Jesus, the Son of God. Looking back on those days, I realized that my purpose was not just to hold the body of Jesus, but to be the stage where he would pull off the greatest event known to man: resurrection. Sincerely, the grave.
To whom it may concern. I am the cross, the infamous wooden weapon used to rip the very breath from the Son of God, Jesus Christ. Many people have hung from me throughout the ages, both guilty and some not so much. I cared not, though. For every single person sentenced to my grasp, I always found something worth killing. But none compared to the experience of holding the Son of God. As I stood on Golgotha that fateful day, I knew something different was about to happen. You could feel it in the air, almost as if you could grasp the tension with your fingertips. The crowd gathered, the soldiers prepared. Then he arrived, carrying me on his shoulders. Every single time I have ever been carried, I felt in control, as if the captain of a ship sailing where I pleased. Yet this time I did not feel in control. Quite the opposite. I felt carried with a purpose. Can you imagine being in custody, yet being in complete control? Never. Or so I thought. Jesus was different from any other person who had hung from me before. He was calm, resolute, and full of love. Even as he endured excruciating pain, I have seen blood before, more times than I could count. I have felt its slow drip, staining my very fibers. This blood, though, this blood was different. It was heavy. It flowed unlike blood, more like a river with a purpose, as if it had something to accomplish. It flowed like a torrent stream after a dam break, and nothing was going to stand in its way. As I held Jesus, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders, as if time stopped. Yet there was not one single ounce of guilt to be found. The weight of mistakes and failure is one I know all too well. But he had none. I constantly asked, why am I killing someone so pure? The cries of the crowd, the jeers of the soldiers, and the pain of Jesus all added to the unbearable burden. I could not help but ask, why? Why do I feel such pressure of all existence on this man, this God? Yet through it all, Jesus remained steadfast in his purpose. I could feel the power within him, the type of power that could have broken time itself, the type of power a hurricane displays as it tosses trees around like twigs. Why did he not use this power? No. He did something that still makes my mind turn in wonder. He forgave those who persecuted him. He comforted those who mourned. And he prayed for all of humanity, dark, broken humanity, while he was dying upon me. The others who had harmed me before were filled with fear, anger, and despair. They cursed their fate and lashed out at those around them. But Jesus was different. He faced death as if it was a bully to be owned, a villain to be crushed, an enemy to be placed under his feet. As I stood there, holding the Son of God, I knew that this was a pivotal moment in history. As if every second of time was looking to this event, waiting to see something that was promised. Come to find out, that promise was Jesus sacrificing himself for the sins of humanity, your sins, and through his death, could all be saved. In the end, as Jesus breathed his last breath, I felt a sense of both deep sadness and awe. Sadness for the loss of perfection in human flesh, but awe in the magnitude of his sacrifice and mercy. It's almost as if I can still feel him, hanging from me in great agony and complete control. How can such a man, such a God, choose to die like that? It makes me wonder, were you worth it? I may not think so, but he surely did. Sincerely, the cross.